there's been a lot of questions this week in light of that video by 6 Democratic lawmakers calling on soldiers to refuse illegal orders, about what constitutes illegal orders, and how soldiers are advised. So for more, we're joined by a former military lawyer known as a JAG, Margaret Donovan. She's also received 2 Bronze Stars. Margaret, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for your time. So can you please help us understand, if a military member thought something was potentially illegal, they would come to a JAG officer and, in essence, get advice. That's how it works, right?
Yeah, precisely. And look, the UCMJ, that's the Uniform Code of Military Justice. That's the military penal code that would govern this type of dispute. And the manual for courts martial would tell you that orders are presumed lawful. And so it's a really sort of a high bar to find an order unlawful. However, if an order is to do something patently illegal or criminal, then you lose that inference of lawfulness. And you can imagine why the bar is high. When you have a system like the military, you need soldiers to be following orders, you need good order and discipline. But that falls away when you are told to do something patently illegal. And so what Senator Kelly and the other members who participated in that video were doing is probably the least controversial thing you could tell a service member, which is to act lawfully. That's what they're going to do anyway. So it is certainly not illegal for them to say that, and it is virtually unheard of to call somebody back from retirement, as the administration has said it would do for Senator Kelly, to court-martial them for telling soldiers to act lawfully. It's preposterous.
Now, Margaret, in your past experience, did you ever give anyone advice saying you thought orders were illegal?
You know, I gave advice on the rules of engagement and the law of armed conflict while I was deployed overseas. And, ideally, when you were advising soldiers, you were telling them it is presumed a lawful order. And to tell you the truth, I had the benefit of having very experienced commanders with integrity and with character, as I think most commanders in the military are. And so they know the line and they don't want to go anywhere near it. It really isn't until this administration that you have somebody as high up as the Secretary of Defense intentionally pushing the envelope and, in my opinion, putting soldiers in peril of being in this type of bind, trying to figure out what's legal and what's not. We shouldn't be asking our soldiers to do that.
Answer me this. Is there any grounds for prosecuting any of these 6 lawmakers then?
Absolutely not. And I think it's very telling that Secretary Hegseth has sort of ran to the UCMJ and said he may, call Senator Kelly back from retirement. That's probably because there is no universe in the civilian world where anything that they did is criminal in nature. And sure enough, if Senator Kelly's investigation proceeds in the military justice world as well, it will be found to be perfectly lawful. What has happened, interestingly, by the president's comments online and by Secretary Hegseth's comments, is they have developed a very good defense, if this were to proceed either in a civilian criminal court or in a military court, of unlawful command influence. And that occurs when somebody at the top of the chain of command or above a person who is bringing charges within the chain of command dictates, either expressly or impliedly, that charges should be brought or the outcome of the case. And that is precisely what has happened here. It's basically the military equivalent of vindictive or selective prosecution. We've seen that play out in criminal cases in the U.S., Kilmer Abrego Garcia and Attorney General James and others. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. We're seeing the president make these comments that is already sort of tanking the case as if he had one, as being sort of tainted by unlawful command influence.
Now, Margaret, give me some insight here. Could this whole thing have a chilling impact on members of the military, even asking if orders are illegal?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the real, I don't know if it's the intended effect, it's certainly the actual consequence here, which is that the military justice system, believe it or not, has pretty robust due process built into it. If somebody is going to be facing a felony level charge, they get a sort of preliminary hearing, a probable cause hearing before that. They can opt for a jury of a trial of their peers. So I actually think that the due process apparatus that is in place will prevent this from moving forward in a criminal posture. However, that chilling effect that you talked about of either chilling senators or other leaders within government from speaking out, or from soldiers themselves being too worried to ask whether or not an order is lawful. That's really problematic. You do not want to have a military who is too scared to ask or to question the orders of their commanders. Now, you have to balance that, right? Like I said from the beginning, that orders are presumed lawful. But when you have people who are pushing the envelope, as the current leadership in the Department of Defense is, you want soldiers to, follow their oath to the Constitution, to follow their own moral compass, and you just hope that they continue to do the right thing. I think our soldiers have integrity. American soldiers have fortitude and strength of character, and I think that will come through.
All right, Margaret Donovan, thank you for your insight.